You're watching Drakewing Gaming. Enjoy the video.
Hey guys and gals, Never here from Drakewing Gaming. It's me on Twitter, the Gaming Drag. Today I'm coming back at you another Let's Play episode of A Fall from Grace. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm chain, you were up, and let's go. Alright. How stupid of him to think it might not have been so in the first place. However, there was one thing that didn't make sense to Cedric. How come Victor, of all people, had figured out the Coyote's parents thought that the two had been lovers? Most people wouldn't even have considered that idea in the first place. There was a chance Victor might be attracted to women and men. Whatever the case, Cedric realized he needed to have a proper conversation about this with him. There was no point in carrying on this way, wondering what was true and what wasn't. He needed to be honest with his friend. Dorian, my dear fellow, I knew nothing of all this. I'm so sorry to hear things didn't work out for you.
It's all right, Alistair. It was a long time ago now.
A slight smile seemed to return to Victor's face as he gazed at Cedric with a warm and friendly look.
Why don't we drink to love's past, present, and future?
The goat raised his pint, and the others did the same.
To love!
Cedric, Victor, and Agnes all replied, To love! The rest of the evening went by rather swiftly, and it wasn't long before Harold led the two friends into the barn, showing them where they could sleep for the night. The barn was more spacious than it looked from the outside, tidy and well kept. The tools were all in the one corner. A large number of wood logs were in piles everywhere, while the hay all about was neatly organized. A few wicker baskets, a wooden ladder, and a bundle of sticks had been left out in the central space, proving the only exception to the overall tidiness. Harold walked in, with Cedric and Victor following. He was carrying some blankets as well as a small lantern, which gave off a soft and warm flickering light, bestowing a magical atmosphere upon the barn's interior. As he came to a halt, he put the lantern down on a wooden box. Be careful with this, lads. Setting fire to the barn would be fun, but not ideal. The two laughed at this unexpected joke. Don't worry, Harold. Your barn is safe with us. The goat gave them an almost naughty look. I hope so. Sleep well, and don't leave without saying goodbye to both of us come morning. Cedric smiled. Of course we won't. And with that, the goat walked out of the barn, leaving the two friends on their own. Cedric sat on the hay and stretched his legs as Victor walked up to the box with the lantern on it. Cheeky devil. He's left us with bottles of cider we hadn't finished. He picked one up and had a drink, all offering Cedric the other. Oh, no, I'm fine. Come, my dear, let's celebrate while we can. This evening has been wonderful. Cedric rolled his eyes, took the bottle, and had a sip. Don't you get too drunk, V. Don't worry, Cedric. It takes more than one of these to get this fox drunk. You're right, though. They're absolutely lovely people. We've been very lucky, see? I told you they'd let us in, thanks to your looks and demeanor. You were spot on. A moment of silence followed as the two took in their surroundings. They felt a soft breeze come in from the open barn door. Cedric knew he had to speak to Victor before they eventually fell asleep. It was now or never. He plucked up some courage the alcohol had gifted him and spoke up. Hey, Victor, why don't we sit outside for a little? There's a lovely breeze out there. Water time. Of course, why not? A few moments later, the two were sitting outdoors with their backs laid against some haystacks. The starry, unclouded sky was truly a beautiful sight to behold, and they both sat in silence for a few minutes, gazing at it in wonder. Cedric decided to stop procrastinating and begin this conversation. He took a deep breath and then spoke. Victor, I'm sorry to hear about that story you told earlier. I had no idea you'd ever met someone you'd fallen for, and to hear it ended badly for you is heartbreaking. It's just one of the many things we still don't know about each other, I suppose. I realize we have so much to catch up on. I tend to forget we're both proper adults now. Indeed, we still have a lot to tell each other. But we have time, don't worry. It's true we've grown up, but at the same time it feels like we're still the same kids we were back then, if you get what I mean. You're right, it's just hearing you talk about that girl Elsie made me realize that we have gotten old after all. I wonder what happened to her. I haven't the faintest idea. I don't even know what she looked like. It took a moment for what Victor had said to sink in, but the moment it did, Cedric turned his head suddenly to stare at the fox. What? What do you mean? I have no idea what she looked like. Because I made all that up, silly. There was no Elsie in the first place. Cedric sat there with his mouth open, completely speechless. Victor burst out laughing. Why, you rogue! You had me completely fooled. I must have put on a good performance then. You scoundrel! I could see tears running down your cheeks earlier. Thank you. It took a while for Victor to stop chuckling, after which he spoke again with a more serious tone. The honest truth is I'm like you, Cedric. I don't think I've ever met someone I've had proper feelings for. I see. We're both in the same boat after all. That we are. Victor took another sip from his almost empty bottle. However, there's one more thing I think you should know, V. Oh? Well, this is difficult to say. The coyote took another deep breath. It took me a long time to figure this out, but I've come to the realization that... The coyote felt his frustration grow. Why was the next bit so difficult to put into words? I'm not attracted to women.
So, you like men?
Victor broke the silence almost immediately. Cedric looked the other way and gave a nervous reply. Yes, I do. He waited to hear how Victor would react to this, unable to meet his eyes out of shame. However, it was curious how rapidly the fox had picked up on where the conversation was leading once again.
Would you fancy that? I never would have imagined so. Just know that this changes nothing about you, Cedric. Just a matter of preference, and we don't choose to be attracted to who we are.
Victor put his hand on his friend's shoulder reassuringly. Cedric felt his nerves rapidly wash off, replaced with a profound feeling of safety and acceptance as they both hugged. The fox couldn't even begin to imagine how good it felt to hear him speak those words. Victor slowly let go, still sitting close to the coyote. He was now looking the other way, and Cedric started to worry. Was he more upset than he let on?
In fact, I suppose this means I also have a confession to make.
Cedric's eyes widened. Was this really happening? The old man's gonna come open the barn door in the morning and cum is just gonna come flooding out. Oh man, that'd be so fucking weird.
I also like men, although I've known so for years. I've slept with a few, but nothing more.
Cedric was completely overwhelmed at this point. He wanted to ask so many questions, but only managed to quietly say his friend's name. Victor. The fox turned to face him and smiled.
Your mouth's open again, Cedric.
He put a hand under the coyote's chin and gently pressed his mouth shut.
Turns out your parents are right about one thing at least.
I guess so. I'm completely blown away.
As am I. I really didn't expect you to be like me.
Cedric turned to look at the fox with almost teary eyes. He now had the dumbest grin plastered across his face. He still couldn't believe this was actually happening and not just a dream. Victor scratched the back of his head rather nervously.
This means I can tell you something I thought I'd always have to keep to myself.
Now was the fox's turn to look uncomfortable, as he struggled to express his thoughts. Cedric was tremendously curious, not having the faintest idea what his friend was about to say.
I find you very cute, Cedric.
Cedric did his best to resist the urge to faint or otherwise scream. You... Anything resembling words or a sentence had left him at this point. Thank you.
Thank you?
Thank you? Thank you? Was that all he could say to the revelation Victor fancied him of all people? His ears began to twitch as his face got hotter and he nervously tapped his fingers. He did his best to say something else, but to no avail. Victor laughed.
I love it when you're all flustered. I've enjoyed your company immensely these last few days. I admire your courage and your honesty.
The two sat in silence for a good 10 minutes or so, as they both took in what had just happened. The calm side of the starry sky gave them a sense of tranquility and ease. Both felt as if a heavy burden was finally off their backs, and they could speak to each other completely honestly for the first time since their meeting a few days earlier. Cedric was never the superstitious type, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that this was all meant to be. It felt like his life had been leading up to this moment. All he was meant to do was sit there, feeling completely at peace. After a few more minutes, the fox got up and slowly made his way toward the door again.
I think it's time we both got some sleep now. More journeying awaits us tomorrow. I hope it hasn't been too much for you so far.
Cedric picked himself up and followed his friend into the barn. I'm fine, don't worry. They both undressed and laid themselves down on the blankets the old goat had left. Victor sat up to blow out the candle inside the lantern.
No, shit, that dude's naked, holy fuck. Good night, my dear Cedric. Sleep well.
You too, see you in the morning. Victor laid himself down again, gently rustling the hay under his blanket.
Definitely gonna have to block that out.
That was a sheath and some balls. Usually Cedric would have had trouble switching off his brain after what had happened a short time earlier, but the day's exhaustion had finally caught up with him and he was fast asleep in no time. The two woke up early the next morning, and after getting dressed and having had a bite to eat, Victor thought it would be a good idea for them to have a wash in a stream nearby. Once there, Cedric had tried making a joke about the both of them getting undressed, thinking it especially amusing after the events the night prior, but it didn't seem to land well as Victor remained silent. Cedric had also tried to make some conversation, but this also didn't seem to go very far. He started to worry that something had upset the fox, but he thought it was best to delay this conversation until they had already left the farmstead.
Ooh, excuse me.
After bathing and drying in the warm sunlight, both were soon ready to set forth on their journey once more. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and judging by the breeze and cheerful sound of birdsong all around, it was going to be a beautiful day. After knocking at the entrance one last time, the two farmers came to see them off. Harold shook their hands vigorously, while Agnes hugged them both. Victor and Cedric were sorry to have said goodbye to such lovely people, even after only having met them the evening before.
Good luck, boys! If you ever happen to pass this way again, don't hesitate to stop by and say hello. We'd love to have you back here as our guests.
Okay. Well said, my dear. Have a safe journey, young sirs.
Oh, here, take this.
Agnes reached for an object inside the house, just behind the entrance, which turned out to be a small basket full of delicious-looking mushrooms.
I picked them myself. Have a few if you get packaged along the way.
You shouldn't have. Cedric took the basket, closing it and fitting it in the sack with his clothes. Victor then cleared his throat and spoke up. Very well. I'd say it's time to go.
Goodbye. Bye. Thank you for everything. Goodbye. Have a beautiful time.
The two kept waving as they closed the small gate behind them and joined the main road, soon losing sight of the old couple in the distance. An hour later, Cedric was already eagerly nibbling at some of the mushrooms Agnes had gifted them.
Sure you don't want any, V?
The fox turned to face him, seemingly still wrapped up in his own thoughts until that moment. Oh, no thank you. I'm not hungry yet. Just save a few for me, and I'll have them later. Cedric was beginning to get worried now. His friend's tone sounded cold and dismissive. Of course. Now was the best moment to ask Victor if anything he'd said last night had upset him. But Cedric was barely able to start thinking about how to word his thoughts when Victor suddenly spoke. Cedric, I'm sorry about last night. I really didn't mean to be so forward. I suppose that cider was stronger than I'd anticipated. So this would have been bothering him, Cedric thought, as he almost sighed in relief after expecting a much more serious confession. Rather, he was quite amused to see just how flustered the fox seemed to be. I need to apologize, V. I appreciated the comment. And I wasn't able to say this yesterday, but I find you incredibly handsome. Victor stopped in his tracks. You do?
Of course I do.
You're pulling my leg. Cedric started laughing at his friend's incredulous expression.
I swear I'm not.
Victor resumed his steady marching pace, seemingly invigorated by this unexpected discovery. In fact, he was now unintentionally walking faster. Cedric, you naughty boy. So you have a thing for handsome and mysterious fox bandits, do you? Cedric was still giggling as he engaged with Victor's banter.
Most definitely, and you obviously have a thing for broke and problematic rich kids.
Indeed, if this is what fate decided I should like, who am I to argue with that? Well said, well said. So, is this the reason you're coming along with me?
It's more of an added bonus. Is this why you asked me to come along with you?
I won't confirm or deny that statement. They kept laughing and joking as they journeyed on for the next hour or so. The path had started to grow shadier, and they soon reached a small clearing where they decided it would be a good idea to rest for a while. The sun rays shone through the rustling leaves, creating beautiful uneven patterns of light on the damp ground. The two noticed a couple of fallen tree trunks a few feet away and sat themselves down. Cedric offered Victor the basket with the mushrooms again, the fox finally accepting it and tasting a few of them. These are delicious. Told you so. I think we should be nearing a small town now, so keep your eyes and ears open in case anyone comes our way. Will do. The coyote gazed at the large sack his companion had been carrying once more. Was he hiding in it? He decided he'd try asking again. V, what's in there? Why won't you tell me? In here? Do you really want to know? Of course I do. The fox hesitated for a moment and then opened the sack, revealing its contents at long last. Sparkling jewels, shiny candlesticks, silverware, clothes, silks, and satins all greeted Cedric's eyes as he took everything in.
Wow, where'd you get...
Then he noticed. These objects were all familiar. Too familiar. He recognized those candlesticks, and he knew exactly where they'd been sitting before being thrown into that sack.
Victor, you stole from my parents' house! Are you completely mad? What if they caught you?
Alright, I'll go ahead and pause it right there, y'all. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and check out our Patreon if you can. It always helps. Before I go, I'm going to give a quick shout-out to our lovely bronze tier patrons. Thank you all for all you do for the channel. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you to our silver tier patron, Cade Silver, and thank you going above and beyond. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks to our two gold tier patrons, Zeke and Toby. Y'all are awesome. We love you. Thank you for subbing to Ultimate Tier. Anyway, if y'all want to get your names in the credits, get access to all of our not safe for work contents as little as $5. Alrighty, I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!